Okay, so as we're getting settled here, looks like we're about there. Are you guys feeling about ready? All right, all right. You know, I had a chance to sit through with you the worship and listen to Kelly and what she had to bring from her life experience today. And I love this idea of talking about relationship, who we are as singles, as people who are married, in terms of this really common kind of almost elementary school type meal of peanut butter and jelly. You know, at my house, there is relational peanut butter and jelly. But it doesn't always look like smooth peanut butter over one slice of the bread and jelly, nice homemade jam over the other slice of bread and pressed neatly together to create an awesome lunch. Oftentimes, it's actually a little bit more like a toddler making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the first time. I don't know how many of you have had toddlers around you, but it's peanut butter in and slapping on, and oops, it's on the counter, and oh, actually, I think that looks good. I'll taste some right now. And is it on the bread? I'm not sure. And then there's jelly coming out of the jar, and it is all over everywhere. And then finally, it's the smashing together with 3-year-old gusto. And that's a little bit more what the relationship peanut butter and jelly can look like at our house sometime between my husband and I. You know, we've been married for 14 years now, and there have been times and years that we have had the same conversation over and over and over, not seeming to be able to connect, not seeming to be able to get to that root of what it is that has been so frustrating. So let me set the stage for you a little bit. I'm going to kind of walk you through a little scenario, something that's been common in my house and may or may not relate directly with you. But let me share this as by way of example. So here's the scenario. Let me set the stage. It's about 6:45 or so on a Monday evening. I work from home, so I am kind of wrapping up things on my computer over here. I am thinking about what we're having for dinner. There are probably dishes piled high, if we're honest with ourselves. And my husband is also kind of coming in from work. He's grabbing a glass of water. He is glad to be home. So that's where we're starting here. So let me give you my perspective, okay? I am working over here happily and steadily at my computer. I'm probably wrapping up a few emails while I'm making something for dinner. I'm wiping off counters. I'm even thinking about what we're doing the next day and the lunch that's being prepared. And, you know, my husband, he's here. He's just kind of standing over there, leaning up against the counter. And I'm thinking to myself, you're not doing anything. And so I kind of keep working, and I'm telling myself I'm engaged in this conversation. I rattle off my to-do list. That's conversation, right? And I, remember to ask him about his day, and he doesn't get up to help to take care of these dishes that I was talking about. That he sees, I'm sure he sees, they're piled high, and instead he just kind of tells me about his day while I work. And I'm thinking to myself, over here, we could get a lot more done if he just stepped in to help. So now, same scenario, his perspective. He's thinking, oh my goodness, I am so glad to be home, to be with the ones I love, to grab some water out of the fridge and just be. I'll stop by the kitchen. I'll say hi to Becky. I'll ask her about her day. I'll be able to process my day. And, I start thinking, though, as I'm standing here in the kitchen, it's kind of hard to talk to the back of a head. But I try anyway. And she's working. So her silence allows me to kind of the time to process and think through things out loud. And at one point, I I even walk over for a kiss, and she barely even looks up before returning back to her work. So I'm over here thinking to myself, we could really connect at a deeper level if she'd just stop for a few minutes. So that's the situation. Same situation and a huge disconnect. And like I said, it's a conversation we had over and over and over again. And it was common. It was frustrating for us, and it was not huge, but it's not where we wanted our relationship to be. And the thing about it is that we didn't really feel that different from each other. You know, we were God followers. We were adventurers. We had the same values. We were both professionals in our jobs. We both couldn't understand why we would ask for such unreasonable things from each other. We couldn't understand and we couldn't see that one of us was this peanut butter that we're talking about today, and one of us was the jelly, that we really weren't all that similar. In fact, let's get a glimpse of that around the room. So I want to kind of take you through a little activity here. So just kind of be prepared to stand up. You're not going to go anywhere, but you are going to kind of stand up, sit down here. So I'm going to just go through kind of some common daily activities or some thoughts and feelings that you may or may not experience. And I want you to stand up if it almost always describes you, okay? So we're gonna have a little bit of fun here, okay? So stand up if you almost always talk to people on elevators, in grocery stores, on airplanes, wherever you go. Yep, I bet the person you came with could have said, oh yeah, they're gonna stand up. All right, you can sit down in between these as well, okay? Stand up if you wish no one would talk to you on elevators and in the store. All right, yep, up and down. And you probably didn't even want to stand up right then, right? Stand up if you almost always make the bed and pick things up. Oh, that's me right here. Pick things up before you leave the house. Yep. Here you go. Stand up if you almost always have a color-coded or otherwise organized closet, right? You know exactly who you are. You have your pants right here, and they're all lined up, and it's short sleeves and long sleeves, and there's patterns and colors, right? Yep. Stand up if you almost always make a list of things to do, write it down, and then stick to it. Yeah, well, there we go, our achievers in the house today, right? Stand up if you make a list of things to do on weekends. Yep, vacation people. I know, I'm guilty. Stand up if you almost always believe there's a right way and a wrong way to do something. Yep, there we go, some hardcore beliefs and values in this room, I can see that. You know, you look around, you see. Stand up if you almost always need to pick someone else to race while driving on the freeway. All right, I'm watching out for you guys on the way home today. Stand up if you almost always are planning your next get-together. Yeah, our socialites out there, these are the people that are connectors, right? They're getting us together. Stand up if you almost always just want everyone to get along. I mean, it's not a cliche, right? All right, look at this harmony in this room coming out loud. Stand up if you almost always like to think before you speak. All right. Stand up if you almost always are trying to figure out or are good at figuring out the plot of a movie before anyone else does. All right, Arnett, you guys just keep it to yourselves, okay? Some of us are trying to process here, okay? Stand up if you almost always are skeptical unless given some proof. Yeah, some analytical minds out there. Tell me why. Stand up if you almost always are pushing the elevator button just to remind the elevator that you're there, right? A little bit of impatience. Oh, let's call that, aptitude. All right, that's our last one here. You guys can have a seat. You know, it's not new to us that we're different, right? We all know that. We can see that. We might even kind of sense it intrinsically. And we often attribute these things. You know, you might have even kind of been bouncing up and down with whoever you came with today, right? One's doing this and one's doing that. But we often attribute them to personality traits. But really, these are signs of talent. And everyone has talent. And when I say talent, I'm talking about natural patterns of thought, patterns of behavior, patterns of feeling that we are innately wired with, and then, when developed, can turn into strength. So some examples of this are like somebody who can effortlessly and instinctively strike up a conversation. Or someone who can look at the numbers and the data, and they just see patterns just kind of popping out. Or somebody who really just seems to consistently have a positive outlook on life. And some of us think, how in the world is this person thinking this is a good situation or finding the silver lining here? And that just comes naturally to them. So what does it feel like when we're operating from a place of talent or a place of strength? I'm gonna have you turn here to the page 2, so it's just after your cover page there. Some of you might already be there. It looks like this. And this is gonna be our little signature challenge. So for some of you out there that are racing people on the freeway, this game is for you, okay? And does everyone have a pen and is good to go on that, okay? So for the first round, I'm gonna have you write your signature, sign your name, 5 times as quickly as you can. Not yet. Let me wait till we say go. As quickly as you can. So, signing a check who signs checks anymore? How about, when they ask you for your autograph, when someone's asking, that's what you're going to put on here, okay? All right, so 5 times, and then when you're done, I want you to hold your pen up and just leave it up. Leave it above your head right there so I can tell that when you're done, all right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Some of you are fast. All right. Coming, looking out there. Our pens are all up. Okay, before you put your pen down, before you put it down, put your other hand up in the air. Switch hands. We're doing it again. Round 2, opposite hand. 1, 2, 3, go. 5 times as quickly as you can, and then put that pen up in the air. Okay. We need a couple handouts down here, Myra, right here in the middle here, toward the third row here. All right, I'll put everyone out of your misery. If you haven't finished yet, you know what? It's not for you, okay? All right, so let's talk through this a little bit. This is a pretty simple exercise, right? I mean, we're writing one way, we're writing the other way. What's the point here? So round 1, with your dominant hand, what were you thinking about when you were putting your signature there? Just kind of yell it out here. Nothing, little stress as possible. What was that? Finishing first, that's right. We're chasing people on the freeway here, yeah. You didn't have to think about what you were writing, right? How did it feel as you were writing with your on round 1 there? Natural. Didn't have to think about it, neutral, like a flow, effortless, right? Yeah. Now how about round 2? What were you thinking about when you were doing this? Yeah, focusing and maybe like how do I cross that T? Do I go this way? Do I go that way? I'm not really sure, right? And then how did that feel? I suck, yeah, someone said. Was that pressure? Well, just kind of unnatural. Yep. Yeah. And what about when you compare the two? When you look at the quality of your work, right? Round 1, I mean, we've all signed our names a few times in our life by the time we've gotten to this point, right? It's pretty consistent. They might all look identical. I mean, there was one person over here that finished in about 5 seconds. I mean, they're like check mark signature, right? But those all look the same. It's exactly how you do it every time, right? And the second round, maybe it was illegible at times, messy. How many of you, it got worse as you went along? Yeah, right? Now, this is what it feels like when you're working in your talent. Round one, it's natural. There's a flow. It's easy, right? It's comfortable for you. Round two, you're not working in your talent. This is what it feels like when you're not doing something that comes naturally to you. You said it was awkward. It was uncomfortable. Maybe some of you even kind of felt a little bit frustrated. Someone's like, I suck, I mean, that's just even just from writing our names, we can realize, yeah, I don't like how I'm doing this right now. And it was subpar quality, right? And it took longer. I mean, most of you finished, but some of you didn't even finish. And most of you who finished, it probably wasn't even the quality of your work was not as great as when you're doing it in round one. And that's what it feels like. You can often achieve it, but not very easily and not very well. And I have come to realize and believe that this is how we are meant to live, in the sharpest and strongest spots. The ethos of our society is very strong in saying we need to be well-rounded, right? They're holding up the Renaissance man as the picture of perfection, somebody who can kind of do everything well. And in that, we're asked to focus on our weaknesses, right? So the theory seems to be prevalent that if we identify our weaknesses and work on them, then we will become well-rounded. Like somehow we can improve our weaknesses to the point of being the same as our strengths and come to this circle, right? It's the well-rounded circle that society promises we can reach, we can obtain if we just would work a little bit harder, right? But instead, what if we can be our very best when we're not a circle, we're not well-rounded, but we are a star? That's right. Our positivity out there, right? Where the points of our strength, where the points of the star are our strengths, there's 5 points here. These are our strengths. And where the dips in between the strengths are our weaknesses. We spend so much time, we spend all of our time kind of, if you imagine with me, kind of pounding out those weaknesses. So we're in the star here, and here's our points, and we're in this low point. We're kind of pounding it out, and we're using all of our energy to kind of to practice and to kind of write with our non-dominant hand. That's kind of what it feels like. We're writing with our non-dominant hand, but we're trying to get better. And we could get better, We could. If you wrote with your non-dominant hand for a long time, you would get better. But it would never truly be natural and comfortable. And then, we've put all this effort into these weaknesses, instead of turning into a well-rounded circle, we turn into more of like a lumpy star, We've pounded out those weaknesses in all those spots. And in the meantime, we've probably ignored our strengths, and they've kind of become a little bit duller. So we're not a circle, we're not well-rounded, and then we're not the sharp star. But instead, when we focus and put all of our energy towards making the sharp points of our star, those natural, innate talents, even sharper, then our proverbial star, it shines, right? We shine. And what's so incredible is that then all that energy that you were putting into pounding out your star, you're now putting into sharpening the points. Not only are you going to be more successful because you're already strong, it's building on something that's already strong, but you are going to love it as you go. You are going to get more energy from it. As you're working on this strength, you are going to enjoy the moments along the way. And then, as we concentrate on our stars, it also gives us the space and the permission to let others, so to let your spouse, your fiance, the friends in your life, be the sharpest that they can be. So when I'm the star that I know, I understand what I bring to the relationship, and then I can start to understand what you bring to the relationship. And together, instead of pounding out the dips, we can fill in each other's dips. And together, we can become more well-rounded. So let's get our juices flowing a little bit more here by another activity. So for this one, I'm going to have you identify a partner. So it can be somebody that you came with today, but it doesn't have to be. This is not going to be an intimate conversation or anything like that. So once you partner up, why don't you stand up? And if there's somebody without a partner, we can kind of work to pair you. So go ahead and stand up. You're not going to move from your seats, but you are going to be standing for this activity. And I want you to also turn to page 3. You're going to be using your pens and your handbooks as you go through this activity, so make sure to have that with you and turn to page 3. Is there anyone, let's see, does anyone need a partner? Is everyone okay? Okay, you two are here. Is there anyone else that's right here? Can you come down to the front if you need a partner? There's somebody right down here that doesn't have one as well. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone's okay here? If you don't have, was there somebody here that there's somebody right here is good, does not have one? Does anyone else not have one that wants to pair up with this fine young gentleman over here? Right there. Okay, if the two of you could just kind of come into the aisle, if you just go right across, you're going to see each other. Yep. There you go. Thank you. Sorry to put focus and emphasis on you guys there. All right. If for some reason you don't have a partner, you can you'll be able to work on this with a pair of 3. That doesn't really work out so well, but yes, a pair of 3 next to you. All right, so you're going to identify one person to be a listener and one person to be a tapper. There are no qualifications except for, I guess, that the listener needs to not mind that they're getting their shoulder tapped on, okay? And this is going to be a gentle tap, okay, tappers? Not a time to take aggression out on people, okay? All right, and then I'm going to explain this here, and then we can get started. So now you have your listener and your tapper. Now, tappers, you are going to face forward here towards these screens. And listeners, you're going to face backwards. Don't turn around yet, but you're going to face backwards so you can't see the screen. The idea is face whatever direction it is so you can't see what's written on the screen, okay? The honor system here. And tappers, I'm going to put up a well-known common song up here, and you are going to tap out the rhythm of the song on the listener's shoulder. And the idea is then the listener is going to hopefully be able to identify what that song is, or you're going to take your best guess, at least, as a listener. Okay, so for example, Star Spangled Banner, right, or our anthem, we're going to say, am I going to get a tap here? No, I'm not. Okay. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Okay, so I'm tapping with you got that? Or tapping it out, okay? And as we do that, tappers, you're going to write down on your paper there in the first column, you're going to write down the % likelihood that your listening friend is going to guess this song. And then after you've tapped it out, listeners, you're going to write down what you think the name of the song is. Okay? Is that clear? Are there any questions out there? Okay. All right. So, listeners, I want you turning around. I want you to not be able to see the screens that are up here or the ones that are on the side down here. All right? Okay. So, and we're going to do 3 songs. So don't turn around until I tell you to turn around. Okay? All right. All right. Tappers are the only ones looking at the screen right now. Be honest, folks. And ready, tappers, no humming and no talking, okay? That will defeat the purpose of the tap, okay? All right, here's your first song, tappers. You're going to write down what % chance you think the listener will guess this song, okay? And then on the count of, you guys can go ahead. If you want to write it down and then go ahead and get started, and I'll see when you stop tapping, I'll interrupt. All right, just go through it one time. And then let your listener guess the song. And listener, you're going to just write, don't say it out loud, just go ahead and write it down on your paper. All right, so you'll see some tapping happening. These are our percussionists of the group. Okay, listeners. Let's try to just go through it one time. And listeners, let's write down what you think that the title of this song probably is. Okay, no turning around yet. We're going to go. This is song number 1 of 3. Okay, are you ready to move on? Okay. Song number 2. Tappers, write down your percent likelihood that you think they're going to get this, and then start your tapping. Okay, listeners, your tapping is coming to a close from most of you. Start writing down the title of your song that you think it is here. No peeking, no giving each other help, guesses. All right, one time through the song, and write down what you think this song is that your tapper is tapping out. All right, I don't see any tapping. Let's go to song number 3. Listeners, keep facing away, and tappers, here we go. Write down the percent chance you think the listener will guess this final song, okay? And listeners, stay facing that direction. Don't turn around until I tell you to turn around, all right? Some of you are more syncopated tappers, I can tell. All right, listeners, now don't turn around yet, please, but please write down your final response there once your tapper is all tapped out. One time through, folks. Okay, as you're writing that down, you can go ahead and turn around and you can sit down. If you're still tapping away, finish up your song or your tap. A lot of buzz about that one, right? All right, so what's the point, right? Why are we doing this? We're talking about strengths, I thought, up here, lady, right? So let's see how you did, listeners, okay? Let's see how you did. All right, listeners, does anyone have a guess for the song number 1? Listeners, anyone have a guess? Happy birthday, that's right. So how many of you got that? Raise a hand. Okay. Oh, dear. Like 25%. I mean, I'm estimating here, okay? All right. Well, maybe the next one. Let's see. Song number 2, listeners, anyone? Old MacDonald? What? Jeopardy, not Jeopardy, but that could be it, right? Like, how about, did someone say Twinkle, Twinkle over? Yes, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star right here. Who got Twinkle, Twinkle? It's all of you, parents of toddlers out there, right? All right, and so I would say that was probably 10%. I mean, we're not doing very good here. Now, actually, tappers, let me ask you, what percentages of likelihood did you think that your partner would guess happy birthday? 50, 90, 20? Well, okay, you're more optimistic there. I mean, more realistic, let's say. How about Twinkle Twinkle? Anyone, what percentage did you think? 90, 20? Yeah, 80? Yeah. And we're at 80 and 10 here, or we're a little bit off, right? Okay, now last one. Listeners, what song did you think we heard here? Some rumbling? I think Mary Had a Little Lamb over here, somebody? That's right. Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yes, I think the syncopated Mary had a, that was a little bit more effective than the actual Mary had a little, So, and then tappers, what did you guess on that one? What was your percent likelihood? 0. Okay, there's realistic. 80 over here, so we're kind of 80. Who got Mary Had a Little Lamb, listeners? Hey, that's pretty good. We're at 30% or something. So, tappers, what were you doing in your head when you were tapping this out? Singing the song, right? You're singing the song. You weren't just tapping it out. And this is what the tappers were listeners were hearing, right? Just a tap. Tap, 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 tap. In your head, you're hearing twinkle, twinkle, right? But the listeners cannot hear your song. I mean, they we're at like 10 to 30% of people who guess the song. And you are estimating, though, that they would guess about, 70, some of you 20, 80%. But others cannot see or hear or read what we innately do. But we assume, tappers, right? We assume they understand. We assume, oh yeah, how could you not get this? This is such a simple song, right? How could you not get this? But your natural talent, your innate talent and wiring are your song. And your talent, there's a mentor of mine in this who describes talent as being internal and invisible. And it's our job to identify what that talent is and try to start bringing it external and to the visible. And you have to identify your song and then not just tap it out or act it out, as the case may be. I'm over here. My song in my head at the end of my day is, there are dishes piled high. Why are you standing over there? There's a lot to do. We have a lot going on. If you just jumped in to help, we would get a lot more done. I need to get things done in my day. That's my song. But he's not hearing it. I'm acting it out, but I'm not allowing it to sing out. I'm not telling him what that song is that's going on inside my head. So that as we let that song come out, our spouse or our friend or even ourself can understand your talents and your strengths and how you're wired. Because only when you understand your talents and your strengths can you be those two stars that were coming together. You can understand where your dips are and where you need each other, kind of how Kelly was talking about today, the kind of complementarianism of how do we know where those strong points are and where those weaker points are and where we need someone to fill those in for us. One tool that I have discovered and that really changed the shape of this conversation in the kitchen here, about 7 years ago, my husband and I came across something that you might be familiar with, the Clifton Strengths Finder. And we've come to know it as something that has revealed that song inside our head. Are some of you familiar with Clifton Strengths Finder? Yeah, a few of you. This it's basically an assessment. It's that's trying to get at what is your root talent. And it's based on 40 years of research. It's based on the life work of a psychologist named Donald Clifton, who instead of studying what was wrong with people, which is what psychologists tend to do, he kind of founded this idea of what if we studied what was right with people? And through studying hundreds of thousands of people who were successful in what they do, he began to uncover those things that make them successful. And they began to fall out into clusters. And so the clusters are what you see there on the next page, page 4 of your handout. And there are 34 talent themes that kind of came out of this research. They're clusters of talent that are kind of all defined by this one word, but they're much more complex than this one word. And if you have an analytical mind and you want to know more about this, I put a little bit of information at the bottom of that page, as well as a link to the technical report. Because one of the things that I love and appreciate about this, compared to a lot of the other very helpful tools out there, but this one really has I really appreciated the validity, the research that's gone behind it, the longitudinal nature of it, and the reliability even between testing and things like that. So if you have that kind of mind, go for it. You can find that technical report there and a link in that page. And so this is what David and I did in 2007, now halfway through our marriage. We've been living without it and with it 7 years now, that changed the situation in our kitchen here. hopefully forever. There are moments that it doesn't, but that it just changed the way that we view each other. And in the end, really what I've based my life and my business on. It gave us a language to make that internal and that visible, external and visible. And it helped us to get that song out of our heads and to communicate that to each other. So let me come back to the story here. So of these 34, the assessment will pull out it will pull out 5 of your top 5 dominant themes of talent. So the things that most naturally come to you, your patterns of thought, your patterns of feeling, and your patterns of behavior is what this is meant to assess. And it gives us 5, but my number 1 talent that's come up now a couple times I've taken it is achiever. My husband's number 1 out of his top 5 is relator. And he's taken it a couple times as well. It's come up. So those are very strong motivators in our lives. So let me give you a little glimpse here. So achiever, back to that peanut butter and jelly at our house that doesn't always look exactly as smooth as the lunch we'd want it to be. Achiever means that I bring stamina to our relationship. I have a lot of stamina. I stay up late, I get up early. I bring drive. I'm kind of an engine when it comes to getting things done. And I enjoy lists. We've already kind of mentioned that a little bit. I enjoy lists, and I might even add something onto the list that wasn't on the list because I did it and I just want to cross it out, you know? Yeah, oh yeah, some of you. That's right. And I really get a lot of satisfaction from getting things done in my day. And my day feels better when I accomplish a lot. So that's achiever. Okay, so then there's relator. My husband brings intimacy naturally. He is skilled at building close relationships with those people he chooses to let into his life. And he enjoys deep one-on-one connections. And not that he just enjoys them, but he needs them. It's a part of who he is. You know, I like relationships, but I'm not wired to need them as deeply as he is. And as a part of that, David is a good friend. And he brings that to our relationship. So with this understanding of David and myself, really, all of a sudden, I can hear his internal song, and it opens me up for grace. I have grace for him in ways that I never had before when I was standing with my back turned. When I'm standing over here kind of grumbling to myself about why he's not doing the things I think that he should be doing. I have grace for seeing he wants to connect. And I am back turned, not allowing that to happen. And he hears my song. He even now recognizes that there are dishes on the counter. It's very cool. And I feel understood. And then we can coexist as the peanut butter and as the jelly. And for the most part, we can be okay with it. And I can understand that he's not wired like me, but he is wired intentionally. So instead of getting frustrated by him not helping me get things done, I can ask him, knowing that it's not really natural for him to identify the tasks that are to be done in the day. And instead of ignoring his need for deep connection, I add that to my list. Connect. Yep. And it might, to those of you who are relators, that might seem like, that seems so shallow. No, that allows me space to give to him to fulfill that need for a one-on-one connection. And instead of standing there, water in hand, leaning on the counter, not engaged in the work, he can ask me what it is that I see needing help with. And since he knows that speaks to me, and then in a pretty cool way, it also allows him time with me as we work together, side by side. And instead of missing my need to get things done and getting frustrated in the process, he can ask when it would be a good time to connect, since I won't naturally see that as something as part of my to-do list. So with this, kind of these words around what we bring, and this is just one of the top 5, and you can explore even deeper into the next. This is just one. As I understand, unveil this, I know what I bring. And he knows what I bring. I bring stamina, lists, drive, getting things done. And in turn, he knows, he's discovered what it is that he brings to the relationship, this deeper level of intimacy. And I understand what he brings, this time to connect and a time to grow together. And over the years since then, it's really challenged me to think more deeply and intentionally about my own song we're talking about here, that I'm not just tapping it out silently, but that I'm allowing it to be sung, and about his, and about sharpening my points of my star. This has been a really big one for me. Sharpening my points of my star instead of pounding out my weaknesses in this kind of elusive attempt to be this well-rounded person. And instead, allow my weaknesses to be what they are, to allow him and his strength to come into those points of weakness. And I've also thought that this may be a part of God, taking God seriously. When he talks about how we all are part of a body, and he defines each of us and it made us intentionally all as a part of a bigger whole. All of our stars fit together to become this more well-rounded. So on page 5 there, I have it listed, and it's going to come up on the screen here. I'm just going to read this passage, and I would love for you to think through it as we are. Maybe kind of, I know it's familiar to a lot of you, just kind of take off their ideas from reading this in the past, but think through it as in terms of where I'm strong, where she's strong. Where I'm strong, where he's strong. The body is not made up of just one part. It has many parts. Suppose the foot says, I'm not a hand, so I don't belong to the body. It is still part of the body. And suppose the ear says, I am not an eye, so I don't belong to the body. It's still a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, how could it hear? If the whole body were an ear, how could it smell? God has placed each part in the body just as he wanted it to be. If all the parts were the same, how could there be a body? As it is, there are many parts, but there is only one body. The eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. In fact, it is just the opposite. The parts of the body that seem to be weaker, less understood, more foreign, I just don't get your song, are the ones that we cannot do without. To think that we are made in such an intentional way by our Creator, and to know that there are ways of helping us identify how it is that He built us, the way that He gave us talents. And really the best way to move forward from here, I'm so glad that you came and chose, well, some of you didn't choose, but, are here today to kind of think through what do strengths in relationship look like? What is this talent that I bring? And what is it that she brings? And how can we not allow ourselves to become lumpy stars, but instead sharp stars that fill in each other's spots. I would love for you to make this more than just a one-day breakout session. Maybe you got a couple things out of it. So on pages 6 and 7 of your handout there, I've included a couple just kind of action ideas to kind of take this past this room, take it out of here. So whether it's in your current relationships or with yourself and the kind of the relationships that you hope to have someday, that this would just kind of, this hour, would just be a catalyst for connection and understanding. So the first action idea there is I've entitled Bring It, Sing It. Okay, so this is an activity you can do with a friend or with your spouse or with your fiance that just helps you reflect on what strengths and attributes you bring to the relationship, and then also considering what your spouse or friend brings as well. And if you're willing to put some time into this, it's very valuable to do this independently. Say, this is what I bring, this is what you bring, and then bring it together and see if there's some overlap there. See if you understand each other, right? This will give you an idea if you're really starting to hear each other's song, or if you know each other's song, or if there's still a little bit of a tapping without song. And I've put some strength attributes there to get you started. These are just some talents that kind of are associated with those 34 themes. These are some of the underlying talents. Obviously, it's no way an exhaustive list, but it gets you started. So that is one way to follow up. And then action idea number 2 on that last page there is read up. So there are a couple books here that you can go deeper by reading one of these books. This is StrengthsFinder 2.0. This is a basic book that both relationships, individuals, and teams at work benefit from. This will describe the Clifton StrengthsFinder in more detail, talk about the strengths philosophy, and then it also talks through and gives examples of each of the 34 talent themes, and also has an access code in the back of it, so you can actually take the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment if you're interested. And then this one is Living Your Strengths, and this one has very similar information. In addition, it has scriptural references, so it comes from a perspective of, okay, if these talents are really from God, if he's made the human race to have talents, then we should see this showing up in his word, right? So this book goes through the 34 strengths in the same way that one does, but it also adds some scriptural references where it kind of shows up in his word. And then the last thing there is just kind of an outside perspective. I would love for you to, another way you can take the assessment is to go to gallupstrengthcenter.com, and you can take it there. You all have the privilege here, The Rock has the privilege of having Dr. Angela Robles here, who is a contracted member who works with their staff through a Forza Institute that she started to bring the concept of working from your strengths. So if you happen to be part of the staff here or also part of their volunteer teams, you have access to her. I would love to connect with you if you are interested in kind of pursuing this a little bit, or even just kind of just getting some more information about it, or a little bit more in depth. So I put my information there on the bottom for you. I have an email list out there. It's out in front of the rock pile. These books are available in rock pile, actually. And I have a list out there, so if you want to give me your name and your email address, I would love to. I don't have a mass newsletter or any sort of mass mailings, but I would love to connect with you personally. So if you put your name out there, I will follow up with you personally. And, more than anything, I hope that you can leave this session today with just a little piece of something to consider for your relationships, of maybe just a desire to know what's going on in your kitchen, your car, your bedroom, your living room, when there is a clear disconnect, one that keeps happening over and over and over, of what you might be missing, what song you might not be hearing from the people around you, and what song you might have inside you that you need to be sharpening out instead of trying to get to this well-rounded place. So thanks for coming today, and go forward. Be well. And I'll just come on down here if you guys want to talk, we can. And you guys, I understand, are heading out to lunch. So the lunch carts, the trucks are going to be out there that way. There's the photo booth out that way. So thanks for joining us.